On today's episode, we're going to try to figure out what it's like to be a client of a financial advisor. Normally, we're talking about how to become one, but now it's like, what is a day in the life of a client of a financial advisor? Let me grab Walt and we'll dive right in.
We're back on Power Your Retirement. Walter Storholt alongside certified financial planner Steve Smith. And Steve, looking forward to today's episode with you since you mentioned it perfectly. We're always talking about, hey, come be a client, come become a client. Now, what's it like to be a client? Once you're on the other side, what is there to expect? What does that relationship look like? We thought it'd be good to kind of peel back that curtain a little bit. And I know that the experience that you're going to speak from won't necessarily translate to every financial advisor office out there, but since you have that intimate knowledge of what your relationship's like with clients and how that transpires and unfolds, thought that would just be really helpful for our audience today. So does that sound fun?
Sounds great. And we're going to release a couple of things that a lot of my clients don't even know, so the secrets come out.
Okay, I like it. All right, well, to start, when somebody's been a client for many years, let's fast forward a little bit. They've already got that solid financial plan in place. They've now retired and they've got that plan in place and working for them. What happens? Do you just not see each other anymore? Do you still have discussions, periodic reviews? How's the relationship develop over the years?
So I'm just going to let the secret out right out the gate here. So part of this whole relationship, client and an advisor, a good advisor will also have another advisor to go over their own plans even. Okay. And not because they weren't done right. Most of them are all done right. I believe I do an amazing job. The reason is that I don't believe anyone can be objective about their own money because they're emotional about their own money. They're subjective about their own money. And that is so critical to understand about your personal relationship with your own money. Because an advisor, it's very easy for me to be objective about your money, Walt, or anybody else's out there. It's very easy to be objective. But when it's your own and your own hopes and dreams and plans and all of that, that's very difficult. So to answer your question of what it's like, and what do we do once we have all the plans in place? It's very important because life changes. We get into different phases of life. We might get a raise. So we have lifestyle creep because we get paid more in our jobs or in our businesses, and things change all the time. So I always tell my clients, there's no such thing as being financially planned. It's not an event. It's something that we do, and then we continue to change along the way as life changes. Sometimes for the better, like in making more money. Sometimes, for the worse. And we'll talk about a few of those a little bit later.
Yeah. So really, when someone puts together a financial plan, it's not the end of something. It's the start of something new. It's the start of a new process at that point. Okay. How often are those reviews happening with your clients? I know when someone's becoming a client, you have a couple of meetings kind of in close succession to one another as you're building the plan. But what about when they're years into it?
Yeah, when they're years into it, then we do one huge meeting, right? That's the annual review. And I like to call it an annual strategy meeting.
Okay.
Because really that's what, the review part takes like a few minutes, but the strategy takes the rest of the meeting. Just how have we done? And then of course, what's more important, how are we tracking towards our goals and what's ahead of us? And how has our personal life changed, the client's personal life changed, and how do we need to adjust? So those are things that we're talking about a lot, but in that annual meeting. But then you get emails all the time. Not constantly, but periodically. You're going to get a few text messages, a check-in on the phone. So that is kind of the baseline. But if a client says, hey, I want to meet quarterly, we meet quarterly. We call them periodic meetings. Minimum is annually, plus all of the check-ins along the way. But that's really how we handle it because, originally we did quarterly for everyone. And we actually got some feedback and said, hey, we're accumulating, and putting all this money away. We trust you. We got the plan down. And, if you want to check in, great. But we don't want to come in 4 times a year. So,
Yeah,
and maybe it's my personality, Walt. I don't know. I
they
think
just
I'm a
don't
nice
like you that
guy,
much,
but maybe I
Steve.
smell. Do I smell? No, I do. But some people love that. Some people don't. So we
Yeah.
create the baseline and then say, hey, if you want to do more, and then everybody's like, does it cost more? I'm like, no, it doesn't cost more. We're monitoring daily of what's going on. We just want, if you're going to do more of an annual with a check-in type of deal, mid-year or a couple times, then we gotta communicate a little bit as life changes for you. We can't let a whole year go by without changes that happened 9 months ago. We need to have that communication going on.
Yeah. It says to me too that you've got very comfortable clients, very relaxed clients, right? If I'm uncomfortable, I'm probably wanting to meet every single month. If I'm stressed out in that way, if I'm comfortable with the process, if I understand what's happening, I know the whys, and I know that when a life event happens, I need to reach out and talk about things.
Mhm.
That tells me that somebody's well prepared to go through it. So the fact that you're able to customize around them and kind of meet them where they are in that comfort level speaks volumes, I think.
Yeah, and people that want to do monthly for a while, they usually calm down and go to quarterly, and some will even eventually go to annual. Just A lot of it's education, a lot of it's going through a few downturns. How do we handle that? How do we communicate through that? And some of it's just on the plan training, if you will.
Yeah. All right. I'm looking for something humorous, although just regular outside the box could apply too if it's not necessarily humorous. I've talked to lots of financial advisors over the years, and I know that not everything is just about what mutual fund do I pick and when do I start Social Security. You
Right.
get asked things probably more often than people would realize that fall a little outside the box of what a normal financial advisor would be considered as doing or providing advice on. So I'm just curious if are there any unique stories or examples of where you've helped clients, in a little bit different or unexpected way as their financial advisor?
Oh, there's a lot of things. People want to people want to buy really unique things,
Okay.
go places. But one that I think is more impactful, I don't know how humorous it is, but that's more impactful is uh, sometimes people want to put together donor advised funds and things. Which
Okay.
was really fun, and they get very excited about it, about whatever it is. I've got one that I'm thinking of has a donor advised fund for widows and orphans. Okay.
Hmm. Okay.
Another one does education, and not just to like their own kids, but they'll put things together to help underprivileged youth in their community. Some fund, community programs. Some even buy properties for like a teen center. One that I worked with, and
That's cool.
and where the it's not humor, but the happy of that is when they come in and show me all the pictures, how it's impacting
Nice.
kids, and they
Yeah.
tell me the stories, and it's just I put a couple in the book. In my first book, I'll put even more in the next one, and that gives me great validation as well. That yes, it's their money and their passion, but I could be just a little part of that to help them get to that level to be able to do those things. It's just amazing.
I,
Just the story.
I would say that fits as going outside the box, right? Helping people with charitable donations and navigating those waters makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and just getting the resources together to make sure they put enough away and invest it well. And
Yeah.
some of those funds were invested very aggressively that were set on the outside for that and built to something amazing.
Really neat that you can play a role in those moments. All right, give us some more, maybe from a different angle, memorable victories or some happy occasions that you've been able to kind of celebrate with your clients over the years.
Absolutely. So when we start out with clients when they're younger, so I'm going to have to kind of stretch the timeline out a little bit. When they start younger, a lot of them need some coaching to get engaged and want to engage because they're busy working, raising kids, and doing all those things. But what I really love is when they start to get close to 50 and they come in with their spouse and we're sitting down and they're like, when can we retire? And we take a look at it, and before we have all these long-term plans, we're building towards all of this, and invested well, and they've done what they're supposed to do. Sometimes even more so, put more away as life ebbs and flows, and they're able to, we can get you out at 60, or we can get you out at 55, and we just talk about what those revenue streams are, and they just get a big smile on their face, just like wow. And some of them don't even do it. Just the fact that they know that financial freedom is right there, just to see that smile, to know that they've got to the other side of life.
Yeah, I knew someone close to retirement once. They weren't ready to retire, but they wanted exactly what you're describing, that opportunity to walk away.
Right.
And they were like, I just want to know that when I have that really bad day at work, and I want that satisfying moment of being able to just say, you know what, I'm done.
Right.
They just wanted to have that power, and then they held on to it for years. And then finally, I think their company got sold or something like that. And the new people coming in, they were like, you know what, I'm not going through this transition. See you guys later.
Yes. And if you're on work, you see the T-shirt that says "I'm one bad day from retirement."
Right.
That came from me.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. I like that. Well, last but not least, as we put a bow on this conversation about being a client of a financial advisor, in particular stories from Steve's world and client base, describe a time when something in life happened to drastically change a client's financial situation for the worse. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and roses, right? So how were you able to help in those kinds of moments?
I'm thinking of a client now, Sam. He's a great guy, worked for the company 30 plus years. I don't know the exact number right off the top, but he was planning to retire at a certain age, and unfortunately had a little accident, and he needed some disability to get him through. And we were, based on the type of work that he was doing, we got him into a 70% product that he was able to, and he still could do his whole life. He just couldn't do his job anymore. So this isn't like a sad story of, paralyzed or anything like that, some drastic that way, but he could no longer do his job anymore. And he was able to use that long-term disability to bridge all the way across and be able to still, really, his real retirement was the date of the accident. But being not only planning for retirement, but also making sure we had the right insurances in place, he was able to still have a great retirement, and that actually paid to 67, which was crazy to me. It's like,
yeah,
we were going to retire and stop at 60, so they ended up actually saving more because of the disability. Now they would reverse that if they could, of course, but by having things planned appropriately, there can be a blessing even in an unfortunate situation that happened to work for this guy.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to use insurance. We don't want to, right? We want that to be wasted money, but when it's needed, we're glad that those things are in place. I went to Yellowstone a couple of weeks ago, Steve, and I went to buy bear spray, and I was like, the chances I'm going to need this are so minuscule. I don't really want to spend the $100 on 2 cans of bear spray.
Right.
But I'm going to be really glad I spent that $100 if bear comes up to us. So
that's going to be worth $1 million to you.
It'll be worth a lot more than $100 at that point. So you bite the bullet and you buy the bear spray.
Well, and maybe there you don't need it. Was it Yosemite you said?
Well, yeah, Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. Okay. But I was up in Alaska, and there is high probability you're going to need it there.
And their grizzly bears are big.
They're huge.
Yes.
And they're digging the fish out of the stream, and they see you, and you're just a big fish. So they're not scared of you at all. You tick them off or feel threatened for their last meal before hibernation. That's coming if you go up there late in the season. You might need that bear spray.
I don't remember what the ad was even for, but one of my favorite commercials of all time. Do you remember it, where the guy's fighting the grizzly bear in the stream, fighting him over the fish? It might have been for a salmon product or something like that, but then they get in a fight in the stream.
That's
one of the best commercials of all time.
That's good.
In any event, thanks for giving us a peek behind the curtain of what it's like to be in your office, what it's like to be a client, how that relationship unfolds, all of that kind of stuff. All right. I said we were going to talk about being a client, but we got to end by talking about how to become a client because one has to happen before the other does. So,
Right.
What's it like to become a client, real quick? What's the type of person that you're usually working with? When are they coming to you? And what's that process look like, if you don't mind detailing for us?
Sure. It's a big range. So I typically work with an employee of a publicly traded utility. That's my typical employee. It's not the only one that I can work with, but that is typical. And we encourage them to come in as early as possible because we can get them planning early on so we can have greater outcomes, retire earlier, all that kind of thing if that works out when we have a bigger timeline. So I encourage people along the whole thing. But if I look at when do people actually come in, it's usually 10 years before retirement. Because if you think about it, of your own experience, if you happen to be 50 years old or something like that, 45, 55, somewhere in there, before you're like, okay, how do I get a house? How do I raise these kids? How do I do college? All this stuff. Not that you weren't saving along the way, but those are the big things that are hitting you in the face. And then all of a sudden the kids go away. It's like, oh, retirement. Kids go off and that happens. So I get it. That's when it becomes a focus. But I encourage people as early as possible. What we do is we put together that retirement plan. And we take kind of where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go and what's possible. With a little bit of discipline, a little bit of pain, but a little bit of gain as well, gaining a wonderful second half. So that's really what we do. We do our best to work with what they've done up to that point and what they can do to make their dreams come true if we can.
Excellent. Well, if you have any questions for Steve, if you'd like to go through that planning process or just have an initial conversation to see if you'd be a good fit to work with one another, all you have to do is go to powerupyour401k.com, powerupyour401k.com, and you'll be able to order Steve's book, the toolkit, helpful guides about retirement, and most importantly, book a time to visit and talk about your financial situation, get a customized review and plan in place that way. No cost or obligation to start that conversation. So again, we've got links in the description of today's show so you can find it easily and begin that conversation with Steve and the team. Steve, thanks for your help. And until next time, have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thanks, Walt. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
We'll see everybody next time right back here on Power Your Retirement.
This podcast is provided by Powerhouse Financial Advisors, an independent firm with advisory services offered through Parsonex Advisory Services, Inc., PAS, a federally registered investment advisor. The information provided is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered as personalized investment advice. PAS does not guarantee the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of this information for your specific circumstances. Investment decisions should be based on an individual's goals, time horizon, and risk tolerance. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and all investments carry a degree of risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any case studies, testimonials, or endorsements shared in this podcast are illustrative of individual experiences and may not be representative of the experience of all clients. They do not guarantee future performance or success. You should not infer any level of assurance regarding future financial outcomes. Listeners should consult with a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before making any investment decisions. Parsonex Advisory Services, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Be sure to consult with your tax and legal professionals regarding your specific circumstances. For a copy of our Form ADV Part 2A, which provides additional information about PAS, including our advisory fees and services, please visit powerhousefinancialadvisors.com.